Welcome. Today we're taking a close look at the massive global push for clean energy. But we're not just looking at the successes, we're asking if there are some serious cracks forming in its very foundation.
So, we all see it, right? Wind turbines popping up, huge solar farms stretching for miles. It feels like we're moving at an incredible pace. But behind all that amazing growth, there's a really troubling trend starting to show up. One that makes you wonder if the foundation of this whole energy transition is as solid as we think it is.
All right, let's put a number on it. 11.5%. That's the increase in reported safety incidents in UK onshore wind projects in just one single year, from 2020 to 2021. It's a pretty big red flag that maybe, just maybe, as we build faster, we're starting to miss some really fundamental stuff. And hey, these aren't just about safety statistics. Incidents like these lead to super costly delays, and they can actually threaten the entire financial health of these vital projects.
And that number, it's not just a one-off. It's really pointing to a much bigger, more systemic crack in how these massive, complex projects are being managed, right from the very beginning.
So here's the core of the problem. The industry is absolutely booming, which is great, but that growth doesn't automatically mean everything's going smoothly. That 11.5% jump for onshore wind, well, it's a similar story for offshore wind globally, where there's been a 10% rise in what they call high-potential incidents. Now, those are the scary ones, the events that could have ended in a serious injury or worse. So as the projects get bigger, it seems the risks are getting bigger too. So, what on earth is going on here? To really get to the bottom of this disconnect, we're going to dig into a brand new and pretty groundbreaking study that asks that exact question.
And here it is. This report from Arms Academy is basically our roadmap for today. What the researchers did was they went out and talked to 33 professionals who are deep in the trenches. We're talking folks in project development, construction, operations, you name it. They covered solar, wind, and battery storage, all to figure out, hey, why are these cracks starting to appear? And what they uncovered is, well, it's fascinating. A huge finding was that there are these critical gaps in how risk gets managed right from the get-go. I mean, we're talking about really basic, but totally essential steps. Things like properly checking out your suppliers, using risk assessments when you're still in the design phase, and this is a big one, actually thinking about how the thing is going to operate once it's built. Now check this out, because the scale of this is just wild. 80%. Let that sink in. That means 4 out of every 5 of these massive projects are being designed and planned with no clear strategy for how they'll actually be run and maintained for the next, 20 or 30 years. It's a huge, alarming blind spot in long-term thinking.
So what happens when you have these gaps in planning? Well, the consequences are very, very real. This isn't just theory. It creates enormous headaches for the people on the ground, the construction crews. They end up dealing with all sorts of unexpected quality problems, super frustrating delays, and they're trying to work from instruction manuals that are based on missing or just flat-out wrong design info.
And this right here just perfectly illustrates that real-world pain. 3/4 of the construction pros they surveyed said that unexpected failures and defects were a significant problem they had to deal with. So you see, this isn't some minor hiccup. It's a systemic failure that's hitting projects all across the board.
And this brings us to what might be the most human part of this entire problem. It's not just about processes and spreadsheets. It's about perception and a fundamental disconnect between the teams drawing up the plans and the teams actually building the thing.
It's like two different worlds. On one side, you've got the project developers who, for the most part, think they're doing a fantastic job and making really high-quality decisions. But then you talk to the construction teams, and you hear a totally different story. They're saying that crucial information about hazards and risks on the site just isn't getting passed down to them. There's this dangerous gap between what one team thinks is happening and what the other team is actually living through every day.
And this isn't just some abstract problem for a handful of engineers. Just look at who was most interested when this research came out. Almost 30% were from operations, the very people who have to deal with these decisions for decades. But you also see finance, marketing, consulting. It goes to show that the ripple effects of this problem touch the entire business. Okay, so we've got a pretty clear diagnosis of the problem, right? But what's the cure? Well, the good news is the report doesn't just point fingers. It actually lays out a clear blueprint for how to build a much stronger foundation for the future. The recommendations are actually pretty logical and really powerful when you put them together. It all boils down to a few key things. Do a much better job with risk assessments at the very beginning.
Integrate your operations strategy from day one, not as an afterthought. And then you've got to strengthen communication between all the different teams and use technology to get a more complete, holistic picture of risk.
Look, if you boil all those recommendations down to just one central idea, this is it. You have to break down the silos. You got to get the developers, the construction crews, and the operations teams in the same room, or at least on the same page, sharing critical information from the very start of a project.
All right, now we get to the final and maybe the most ironic part of this whole story. The report itself, a document all about the challenges of communication, ran smack into its own major communication challenge.
I mean, this is the million-dollar question, isn't it? Armster Academy created this incredibly important piece of research with a message the industry desperately needs to hear. But, having the answer is one thing. Getting people to actually listen, that's a whole different ballgame.
So, to get the word out, they ran a targeted ad campaign. First step, impressions. They got the message in front of over 24,000 pairs of eyeballs. Not bad.
Second step, clicks. From those thousands and thousands of views, 562 people were interested enough to actually click and learn more. Okay? Still with me?
But here's the number that tells the entire story. Out of those 562 people who clicked, how many do you think actually downloaded the full report? 5. Just 5. It's the perfect real-world example of the exact communication gap the report is all about. The information is right there, but actually breaking through the noise is the real challenge.
And that kind of leaves us with this final, really thought-provoking question. This research shows us that the path to safer, more successful renewable energy projects is actually pretty clear. It's all about communication, integration, and planning ahead. But if a report that spells out those exact solutions can barely get heard, what does that say about our ability to solve the bigger problem? It really makes you wonder. If the answers are hidden in plain sight, what's it going to take for us to finally learn how to see them?